The North Dakota State football team finished their regular season undefeated and spent the first round of the FCS playoffs on a bye. This Saturday, the top-seeded Bison welcomed the Montana State Bobcats to the Fargo Dome in the second round of the playoffs. For more on this upcoming matchup, we join Bison Information Network sports reporter Eric Bunnell live at Herd 'n Horns. Eric?
Hey, thanks, Isaac. We are here live at Herd 'n Horns to preview the big FCS matchup in the second round of the playoffs between the Bobcats of Montana State and the top-seeded North Dakota State Bison. But before I introduce my special guest, let's hear from the head coach, Chris Kleiman.
Variety of guys back there carrying the football, whether it's the quarterback, whether it's one of the wide receivers. They're going to line up in three back sets. They're going to shift to an unbalanced set, and a lot of different ways to try to be creative to run the football. But that's how they've had success.
Welcome back to Herd 'n Horns as I introduce my guest now, Taylor Schlamer, Spectrum Sports editor. And Taylor, good to have you here. What do you make of this matchup of the Bison and Bobcats this weekend?
It's going to be two really good power run teams. It's going to be a grind of a game. Both these teams can run the ball on the ground. Troy Anderson, the quarterback of Montana State, 87 yards and a touchdown on the ground last week against Incarnate Word. He's almost Chris Streveler-esque, the former South Dakota quarterback. Wants to get to the edge, wants to run the ball, and is quite good at it. A converted linebacker, so he'll be putting his shoulder down for sure.
You mentioned him getting the quarterback for the Bobcats getting Chris Streveler-like comparisons right now, and the Bison were able to control Streveler. So are they able to control Anderson like they have been in Streveler in the past?
You got to feel like that's going to be the case, and that's where Incarnate Word had a couple of really good defensive ends, but not quite up to the same level as the Bison. And the Bison also have a really good linebacking core. You have Jabril Cox, and that guy is just fast. He will be chasing down everyone in sight. And you also have guys like Robbie Grimsley crashing down from his safety position, get down in the box and make some tackles.
What do you make? What's the biggest X factor to you coming into this game for the Bison?
It's going to be that Bison passing attack, and this is something the Bison haven't had to do much this season, but Stick has been incredibly efficient. The Bison are fourth when it comes to passing efficiency this season in the nation, and you have guys like Ben Ellison, 7 touchdown catches on a total of 12 receptions. That's just money, and it's efficient.
Talking about Ellison, he's like Stick's go-to guy as a tight end group. What do you make of Darius Shepard? Do they put a linebacker on him, or how are they going to cover him?
You got to throw a corner on him because he is just that good, and it doesn't matter who really you put on him. Darius has been able to make some big plays all season long.
Before I let you go, what do you think of the JMU Colgate game? Who do you see coming into, assuming the Bison win, who do you see coming to Fargo next week?
I have James Madison there, but head coach Mike Houston currently in a bit of hot water there. He's expressed interest in the job at Charlotte, and it's kind of odd for a coach to come out in public and say that.
All right, well, thank you, Taylor. Thanks again to Herd 'n Horns for letting us come here to do our live shot. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Eric. This game can be seen on ESPN3 with a cable provider login. It is scheduled to kick off on Saturday at 2 o'clock. The winner advancing to the quarterfinals, and they'll play either Colgate or James Madison. The NDSU men's basketball team traveled out to Spokane, Washington Monday for a meeting with the #1 team in the country, the Gonzaga Bulldogs. The last time these two teams met was in the 2015 NCAA tournament, a 10-point Bulldog win. We will pick it up in the first half. Bison had just gone up 19-18. It's going to be Brandon Clark squaring up, knocking one down from mid-range. Gonzaga at this point now up by double digits. Later on, it's Josh Perkins getting the pass back in transition, squaring up and nailing another 3, 14 points, the lead for Gonzaga. Then it's going to be eventually finished off by Ryu Hachimura from Zach Norvell, the slam in transition, now a 20-point lead for Gonzaga. And still in the first half, it's going to be Brandon Clark sending that shot back, getting the fast break started for Gonzaga, finished off by Zach Norvell in transition. Gonzaga shooting 72% in the first half, leading 53-25 at the break. And in the second half, it's more Gonzaga. Corey Kispert hits 3 consecutive threes for the Bulldogs, 15 in the game as he knocks another one down from the corner. And yet another one from the right corner for good measure, a 40-point lead at this point, and it would not get better. Gonzaga big over NDSU, 102-60. A lone bright spot for the Bison, Vinny Shahid, 16 points and 2 rebounds. They'll take on a different type of Bulldog this Saturday night at US Bank Stadium. They'll be taking on the Drake Bulldogs. Tip-off scheduled for 5:30. The North Dakota State women's basketball team hit the road to take on the Huskies of Northern Illinois. NDSU held a 9-8 lead in the first quarter, but that was the last time they'd hold a lead, as the Huskies would outscore the Bison 73-55 the rest of the way. Michelle Geislerova led the way for the Bison with a career-high 30 points. They'll now return home to take on the University of Missouri, Kansas City, the Kangaroos, on Sunday. Tip-off scheduled for 1 p.m. Last week, members of the Student Athlete Advisory Council took part in one of their biggest charity events of the year, the annual Summit League Food Drive. The members spent the first week in November collecting non-perishable food items and monetary donations at different Bison sporting events to prepare for the drive. They then took all the food and money donated and brought them to the Fargo Emergency Food Pantry for people to pick up. The timing was perfect this year, falling just 2 days before Thanksgiving, which made the SAC members feel really good about helping those in need.
It's super important. I think we picked a great time to do this volunteering, and it's just awesome to give back to a community that gives so much to us.
Last year, the group gave out more than 7,000 pounds of food. This year, the goal is around 5,000. The event takes place twice a year. The next one is scheduled for this spring. Sunday night marked the 117th meeting between the Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers. Each team came into the game not only looking to avoid another tie, but to keep their playoff hopes alive. You see Aaron Rodgers leading the Green and Gold Brigade onto the field. Here in the middle of the first quarter, it's Aaron Rodgers finding Davante Adams for a touchdown to put the Packers up 7-0. Mid through the first quarter, Vikings on their ensuing possession. It's going to be Kirk Cousins finding Dalvin Cook on a little swing pass. Pat Elflein leads the way. Cook does the rest into the end zone. Vikings tie the game at 7, and a little limbo celebration, maybe celebration of the year? Who knows? Later on, it's Green Bay with another touchdown here. Aaron Jones taking the pitch from 6 yards out. 14-7 Packers out in the lead. And on the Vikings' ensuing possession, it's going to be Kirk Cousins off play action, loading up and firing deep to a wide-open Stephon Diggs for a touchdown. Minnesota now tied at 14. They kick a field goal later. It's now 17-14 late in the third quarter. Kirk Cousins rolling out, and he finds Adam Thielen sitting down wide open and powers his way into the end zone for a Viking touchdown. How do you leave 19 in purple open? 24-14 Vikings lead there. Late fourth quarter, Packers trying to give themselves a chance to come back. It's Aaron Rodgers dropping back, given time, and finding an open Davante Adams, but just out of his reach. Rodgers visibly upset. Packers would kick a field goal on that drive and would not get the ball back. The Vikings win this game 24-17. Kirk Cousins outplaying Aaron Rodgers in this one. 342 yards for Cousins, 198 yards only for Rodgers. And the Vikings now at 6-4-1, Packers at 4-6-1. And I would be remiss at this point if I didn't plug the show that Jay and Eric do weekly. X's and O's, the last show I believe will be next week. Last show was not one to miss, and I guarantee you that there'll be another one, be an interesting one to view.
All right, thank you, Isaac. Coming up, we'll hear how students are preparing for their finals.
After the break.